Hi, welcome to four stories of people who found their dreams after overwhelming setbacks, provided by the Balanced Work Life Company. And just wanted to start off this presentation kind of explaining why we made it. We're hearing a lot of people's stories about how overwhelming setbacks are keeping them from being able to reach their dreams. Things like being in a family growing up with poverty, having a disability in your life, or facing significant health problems, going through bankruptcy. There's all kinds of overwhelming setbacks we hear about. And oftentimes people think that if they face one of those kinds of things, then it's game over. No chance of ever reaching your dreams or ultimate potential. But we want to show that that's not always the case. One of the facts that I was able to find on Forbes magazine was that of the 946 billionaires out there, about 2/3 of them made their fortune from scratch. So a lot of it comes from what we can do for ourselves. And just wanted to share four stories of some people who have been able to do that. The first one is J.K. Rowling. She grew up in a modest setting in the UK. Her mom passed away, and that led to her moving to Portugal, teaching English, doing the just standard teacher's wages there. She got married, had a kid, and then later divorced not too long after that. So she was a single parent. Now that led her to coming back to the UK, where she could live closer to some family and be able to help support her family while she was working on her Harry Potter manuscripts. So while she was here, she was making pretty little in money and was definitely on their welfare for the UK. And it was while Jessica, her daughter, was taking naps that she was able to finish writing the manuscripts for the first Harry Potter book. And she even had to get a grant just to get a typewriter to print it up. And now we all know her as a very successful woman. She is over $1 billion in earnings, and she is someone who could have easily taken the route of being a single parent, being a teacher, and I don't think anyone would have thought of her as an underachiever or anything else. I think that would have been acceptable, but she wanted to do a little bit more. The next person I wanted to talk about was Tommy Hilfiger. His story is really interesting. He wasn't always a big name kind of guy. When he first started his real business in the design industry, he made this advertising campaign that's kind of gone down into history where he put on a big billboard on Times Square, what you see in front of you, basically listing Ralph Lauren, Perry Ellis, Calvin Klein, and then his own name as the top four American designers. And that at the time really kind of hit a nerve for those other three guys to see some no-name try to compare himself to that. So just how did his story begin? Tommy was the son of two Irish Americans growing up in New York. He really didn't have the most wealthy beginnings. He went to high school and afterwards just didn't want to really further his education. He went right into retail, and he still had that hobby of designing. So he would go up to New York City, buy expensive clothes or name brand looking jeans, and then he would actually take them back to his home in Elmira, do some alterations, and sell them for a profit. And he'd make good money doing this. So he eventually decided he would open up his own store and do it for a living, and he called it the People's Place. But after about 7 years and not the best sales, he had to close it down, and he was bankrupt by the age of 25. Something that is pretty hard to come back from, but that didn't stop him. Tommy already had made a name for himself. Perry Ellis and Calvin Klein both wanted him to work for them, but Tommy Hilfiger turned it down even though he was broke. Now he is known very well. He was able to start his own business in 1984. 8 years later, it went public. 20 years later, he had 5,400 employees and revenues over 1.8 billion. And just about 4 years ago, he was able to sell his company for $1.6 billion. So that's a pretty big turnaround from being bankrupt to a billionaire. So all those people who I just talked about they were normal people. I mean, they've had some setbacks that were related to circumstances, but what about someone who's got actual physical disabilities? This leads into Nick Vijucik. He's a great example of someone who, this person has no arms, no legs, but he still wanted to make a name for himself, and he did exactly that. He tells a story about how when he was born, his mom, unlike most moms, didn't want to see him, told the nurse to take him back. He grew up always looking at families like this one here and thinking, I'm never going to be able to have that because I can't even hug my children or anything else like that. So it was really depressing, and by the age of 10, he wanted to take his life. But things kind of turned around as he was going to church very frequently and very active, and he heard a story about Jesus coming in and seeing a blind man, and what he does is he gives this blind man some clay, puts it on his face, tells him to go wash it off, and he'll be able to see again. And so the guy does that, and he's cured of his blindness, and it doesn't really say much about what everyone else did, but what Nick would think in his mind was that at least one of the people who saw that had to have been converted forever. So Nick was inspired by this to basically go through his day and make some major changes. Go do some things that no one would have ever expected, so that he could be an inspiration to millions. And he did that. He's one of the only people I can think of without any arms or legs that can go swimming all on his own. He can write. He can type over 40 words per minute. He's got a dual degree in finance and accounting. He has 2 homes by the age of 25, and he also speaks to millions and millions of people all around the world now. If you look him up on YouTube, you'll see that he has millions of followers there as well. So he's definitely made a name for himself. The fourth one really is our own stories, and for me, we all have those kinds of setbacks that come up in our lives. It's inevitable. So it really just depends on what we do with it afterwards. For me, I grew up and I was diagnosed with cancer when I was 8 years old. Had a relapse 2 years later, and went through chemotherapy, radiation, and a bone marrow transplant. I came out of college at a horrible time to look for jobs, so I had to work through that. But I also had a lot of success and have been able to see a lot of my dreams come through as well. I've given back to the community, helping with cancer and bone marrow drives, doing radio commercials, building donations for the Phoenix Children's Hospital. I was able to go to college on a full ride scholarship, graduated magna cum laude in marketing. I also got to serve in Texas around the same time as the hurricanes. Katrina was coming through, and so we got to help a lot of the people during that time. And then I also have a great family I can benefit from and have learned so much from. So I wanted to just end by hearing a little bit more about your guys' stories and have you share some things in the comments below, or share this with some other people that you might know that have recently gone through some overwhelming setbacks, and give them some ideas about the people that have been able to overcome those things as well. So if you would like to share the advice you have or your own stories, feel free. We really appreciate that. And we hope to see you around on the blog.